Welcome, everyone, to Rules of the Arena, episode 29. This episode is made possible by Blind Ninja Studios, where you can find this show and others, such as Department of Defense, Homebrew Bound, Soundwave, and Legends of Lothos. This episode is also brought to you by Duck Hill Workshop, a small-scale sawmill and builders of fine furniture. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram at Duck Hill Workshop. Don't forget to subscribe to their YouTube channel, where you can watch episodes of Workshop Wednesday and In the Shop with Glenn and Ben. In studio with me this week is always super producer Casey, who's adjusting camera angles right now, and my co-host Ben has finally returned.
Hello.
The nurses restored his visitor passes and travel privileges after the shenanigans in Spooner back in May.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. Grandpa, I'm glad you're back on your feet.
More importantly, we are joined by Dr. Carl Calabrese. Did I say your last name right?
You got it.
Perfect.
Impressive.
And his wife, Emily, is also here with us. She might pipe in. I'll try to draw you into the show eventually.
It'll just be a laugh track.
Yeah. Carl is the owner and founder of One Life Chiropractic, based out of Prescott, Wisconsin, who is also, he's one of the OG fans from the arena. God, I don't know.
Wait, you have fans?
Yeah.
No.
Carl's actually
Wow.
the first person to message me about it, too. Do it 2 years ago, and that's even when I had no direction. I still don't have any direction where the show's going. But
I didn't say it.
thanks again, Carl, for coming down to the studio. Please just introduce yourself a little bit for everyone listening.
He did a pretty good job. Like Gordon said, I'm Carl Calabrese. I founded One Life Chiropractic in Prescott, Wisconsin, and I'm glad to be here. I'm not too exciting of a person, so
That's what the beer's for.
Yes.
So, in layman's term, what is a chiropractor?
Oh, great question. So, chiropractic is the finding and correction of subluxation. So, a chiropractor is someone who finds and corrects those subluxations. Now, that's a lot of
Need you to water
information
that
right
down
there.
a little bit
Yep.
more, Kimosabi.
Yeah, we're gonna simplify that a little bit, and hopefully I don't lose too many of you right here. So a subluxation, we'll start with the term luxation first. A luxation is a dislocation. So everyone knows the term dislocation. A shoulder gets out of place, it falls way out, you dislocate it, you're in a bad mood. Apparently Gordon's done that before.
But
Twice.
Gordon's always
3
in a
times.
bad mood.
Oof.
I'm a ray of sunshine.
On a cloudy day.
So a subluxation is going to be less than a luxation. It is out of its normal working range of motion, but not completely out of the joint capsule. Yeah.
I tore my rotator cuff twice, dislocated my right shoulder once.
Ooh.
Not fun.
Let's work on that.
Don't let your high school nurse put your shoulder back in socket. You will have problems later on.
But she's a nurse in high school.
Yeah, and now I can't throw a football.
Well,
Let's
to be
realistic,
fair, you couldn't
before.
either.
I could. It's not very far.
Did you strengthen your rotator cuff after that to prevent it from happening again?
Sure.
No.
The soup can, the Campbell's family size soup can, became my best friend for about a year and a half.
Did you do Martins Lisi's rotator cuff workouts?
So yeah, I know what the motion you're doing. I haven't. Yeah, I did physical therapy, and I worked with Matt and Joel over at Best Chiropractic up in Hudson.
Oh, okay. I've heard good things about that.
I don't mean to derail, but what the hell does a soup can have to do with anything?
Because I couldn't pick up 5 pounds, I could pick up like 1.5 pounds maybe on a
okay.
good day. So you start off with the tiny little single serving soup can, and you work your way up to the family size.
Oh, okay.
And then you get to do the power bands after that. That's when you know you're making progress.
When you look like a 45-year-old housewife
Yeah.
at the gym.
With the little 5-pound
We
weight.
just Sorry to interrupt you.
Shake weight practice.
He was getting that. He was in high school.
Bazinga.
So, back to the big words.
Yeah.
I think I broke Gordon. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, like you're saying, the subluxation. So yeah, that's what happened to me exactly.
Yeah.
I tore. It was an impact injury. I was working with a new student in karate, and instead of hitting my collarbone chest, he hit my shoulder. blew my AC joint backwards, and tore my rotator, 2 out of 3 tendons of my rotator cuff, and my collarbone went forward.
Oi,
Yeah, that was fun.
that does not sound fun.
Gordon's
I'm gonna disagree
version
with
of
that.
fun is skewed.
Well, I mean, it wasn't so bad, except for I was still painting houses at the time, and I'd have to go set up 32-foot ladders by myself, and really fun when your arm's in a sling.
Yeah.
So-
Still disagree.
When did you first think about going to school to become a chiropractor, and what influenced that?
So that actually didn't happen until my junior year of college, I believe. So I guess I'll go through my whole little story here, just so it makes sense. So my first experience with a chiropractor was when I was in high school. I got injured pole vaulting, and I went to a physical therapist for about 2 weeks. And the physical therapist said, okay, we're not getting anywhere with you. Nothing against physical therapists. That the problem was outside of their wheelhouse. They did an amazing job to help me get going. So they recommended I go to the chiropractor. They sent me down to the chiropractor, who was just on the next block. Lived on a small town, and there was one option there. And he did what's called diversified or general treatment chiropractic. His goal was pain relief. He would twist me, crack my low back, put me up against the wall, crack my mid back, and I'd feel good for about 2 days at a time. But it never really fixed the problem. It got me through. It got me through the track season, which is what I cared about at that point. And then we fast forward a couple months. I got to UW River Falls here and started training for the decathlon, and I started getting low back pain again. So they sent me to a chiropractor, Woody Fangmeyer at Innate Chiropractic, and he does what's called the Gonstead system. And through that, he was able to figure out what was going on, how to take care of it, and how to keep me going through 5 years of beating up my body. And he was the first one to suggest I become a chiropractor. At the time, I thought, nah, I want to be a physical therapist. I kind of bounced around. I wanted to be an engineer. Turns out you have to be really good at math for that. So,
Just to be successful.
yeah. So having not a math-minded brain, I nixed that pretty quick.
I'm 100% right there with you.
Yeah. But I knew a bunch of my teammates had gone to him. I saw how big of an impact he made in people's lives. I ended up going and shadowing him. And he had a couple of people who, I don't know if he planned it out this way, but there were some almost what you'd call miracle cases, where people who should not have gotten better. There was one lady who was in a coma for a while. I got to meet her, and she said because of him, she was able to talk again and able to move her hands again and, just do normal day-to-day tasks. And that was really cool. It really put things into perspective. So he's the reason I ended up getting into it. His little suggestion, shadowing him, seeing what he does, how he does it, was very inspirational, and got me interested.
So, like you said, you thought about being an engineer. You're going for physical therapy. Was it hard to find a program, an undergrad program, that would support going into chiropractic?
It was not. Since I was already at River Falls, there were a couple different paths I could have taken, actually. So River Falls had the exercise science in their health and human performance department, which was one option, and then they had their pre-chiropractic, pre-med in the biology department. So I ended up taking the biology route, and I was fortunate enough to have some good mentors who were able to help me through and guide me in the right direction to figure out what I needed to do there.
Did they have kind of an idea of what classes you need to take to go into a grad program, or was it, well, we kind of think you need this? Because I went to UW River Falls as well, but it was the history department, and They're a little more loose over there.
Yeah.
Wait, you have a history degree?
I didn't say
No,
that.
because Gordon likes to fight with people. And
No.
therefore he left
Correct
the university.
them. Not my fault you're on a high horse that I can kick.
So no, they actually had a chiropractic specific program, and they did what's called so the biology major was the key to start building it, and then they had what's called an interdisciplinary minor, where it was basically pick the classes that are required for your school to go into it, and they showed me exactly what those classes were that was needed, the additional chemistry classes, the psychology classes that were needed. So they did an awesome job of setting me up, putting me on the right path to get accepted.
Was the original plan to go to UW Falls, or were you looking at other universities?
I looked at a couple. I looked at Mankato State and Wartburg, but just didn't like the feel of Mankato State. When I went and did my visit, I just felt like a number, and Wartburg was like $30,000 a year, so that didn't seem like a super smart move for me at the time either.
And already being at River Falls, and you decided, well, I want to go from engineering to physical therapy to chiropractic. Did you look at other schools during that process? Because, well, maybe River Falls doesn't have, being primarily an ag school. What if they don't have the program here? Should I start looking, or did you just immediately start talking to the people on campus?
I just started talking to who I knew I needed to talk to. And I'll go back here a second. I actually originally came to River Falls to be an agronomist, because I thought that would be really cool, getting in and figuring out how to, create plants, genetically engineer plants that would grow in different environments, that kind of thing. So I ended up not digging the crop and soils class that I took right away there, and ended up switching over to those other ones I mentioned, the physical therapy, the thought of engineering. Yeah, so I didn't need to look around anymore. I knew that they had a program here. I just asked who I needed to ask. I had a very good advisor in the Health and Human Performance Department, who I asked him, and he instantly told me who to go talk to, who I needed to check with, and he was great.
And once graduate, did it push you back? I know with you have your gen ed classes, but then of course the required courses. How far did it push your graduation date back, or were you still able to use a lot of those previous credits?
That's a great question.
Because I have 48 credits of electives that didn't transfer.
Okay. Oof. No, my classes all transferred. They're all useful, but the problem that I ran into, and I got in a nice argument with, who was it?
See, Ben, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I got in a nice argument with someone in one of the offices. I honestly don't remember who it was. And I tried to get her to specially let me into class. I had one semester where I took 0 classes that went towards my major, because all of the classes that I hadn't taken that would count were filled already. I think that was the second semester of my sophomore year. So I ended up basically wasting a semester just I think I got one class that ended up counting as a general, and that was really the only issue I had there. And then I had gotten injured in track. I think I pulled my hamstring one year, so I ended up having an extra season of eligibility, so I didn't mind sticking around for another year. Plus I loved going to school here. So I ended up taking 5 years, but I really didn't mind it too much.
So then once you graduated, what's it look like trying to find a grad program at that point? How many schools were you looking at? How many did you apply to?
Yeah, I actually ended up only applying to one. I applied to Northwestern. So there's a couple different Northwesterns in the area. There's obviously the big one down in Illinois. There's Northwestern, the Christian Bible School in Roseville, I think that is, and then Northwestern Health Sciences University in Bloomington, which is the one I went to. That was the only school I applied to. The lady sitting next to me was a big reason for that. I didn't want to have to go far away from her, and I figured if I didn't get in there, I'd go find a job working in a lab because I really like lab work too. So that wasn't too tough. And I was fortunate enough to get into Northwestern, and went through all my grad schooling there.
How long did you spend in grad school at that point? I know, from what the reason I met Carl is through my old roommate Kevin, who also went to Northwestern in Bloomington. I know he took the I want to kill myself route doing trimesters. Is that standard down there, or
that is
can
standard?
You do?
Yep. So yeah, definitely that I want to kill myself route. It was. So a normal.
Is it billed as that, or
no? It should
It's all
be.
their marketing material.
Just remember not having a roommate for like 2 months of the end of every year when he's going through the exams and
well,
all that.
that sounds
jazz.
amazing. I know.
I heard the door open, but nobody's here.
So the way they build it was, hey, this is a 5-year program, and we're gonna get you through in 3 1/3.
Woof.
Yeah, it ended up.
It should be a red flag. Like,
Yeah.
some people are gonna be like, "This is great." That should be a red
Yeah,
flag.
and-
It's like this trail is short, but it's really fucking steep.
Well, to be fair, have you ever met a smart college student?
No.
That's why we do a podcast.
Yeah. And when you went to the initiation, exploring the campus day, they made it sound like it was the greatest thing ever. You don't have to waste your time. You can get out of here quick and get right to your career of being a chiropractor. And it was tough. It was awful. And it was year round. I think we had about 2 or 3 weeks off between trimesters, and then so we just keep going all summer. Fortunately, they made the summer semesters a little lighter, so we averaged about, I think, 21 credits a semester or a trimester. Thank you. Yeah. So I think we started out the first semester, we had 24 credits on the first trimester, and an average, like a full load at an undergrad is considered 15. So we'd be in class from 8 a.m. until 4 or 5 p.m. Partake mostly in an auditorium that had no windows, so it was in the winter. I'd go about weeks without seeing light.
Those are some cranky, sad years.
Yeah, that
Which
was,
is proven to be bad for you, actually. We,
Yeah.
So
talked to a
they were
teacher
somewhat.
There were some cranky, sad years. Definitely.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd install like sunlight lighting or something, so you're still getting the vitamin D.
Well, not to interrupt you, when we went to Alaska, we stayed
UV.
at a B&B, and one of the owner, he is superintendent for Anchorage,
Okay.
and they have the suicide rate is really high in the winter in Alaska because of the lack of sunlight. That's why they have mandatory break time when there is sun out, for that hour and a half, whatever the case may be, and you have to go eat lunch or do whatever in the particular room with the sun coming through. Oh.
That makes sense. That's smart.
Mhm.
Wish they did that. No, we actually, our cafeteria had a lot of light in it. There were a bunch of big natural windows. That was about the most light I saw, I guess, during that time. But yeah, so we'd be in class from 8 in the morning till 4 at night, and then 4 or 5 depending on the day, and then I'd go home to eat, which, again, I'm in grad school. I think I figured out I fed myself for about $3 a day. 2 days a week I ate half a pizza, like a frozen pizza, so not like a Roma. So
When Jax goes on
That was
for
nice.
10 for 10.
yeah,
Grad school sounds like shit.
Believe me,
yeah, that was
my wife's in it right now. So.
yeah. Going to grad school to be a health professional, and that was the least healthy I ever was. But yeah, so we'd be in there for hours, and then after I'd eat, normally, I'd kill little time sitting at home just to not go back, and then I'd go back to school and study in the library until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, whatever time they kicked us out. and then repeated it all the next day. So that was long. I think our second semester was 27 credits or something like that, so double a normal load. But I am very happy to have gotten through it in only 3 1/3 years instead of having to take the whole 5. It was very front loaded too, so the first like 5 semesters were just awful, and then I'm really painting a pleasant picture. It's actually
No, I'm the
it's
5
actually
is
a
looking
great
better
school.
and better
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like, take the 5, it sounds like.
Yeah.
If you would like to live and breathe something else other than school.
It was actually a great program. I'm happy I went. But yeah, it was long. It was tough. As we got farther into it, I think our 6th trimester, we started doing internship. We started with another student when we were in our 5th trimester. T5 we called it, and then T6 for the 6. 6 we started being able to go out and interning, and we had 7, 8, 9, and 10 where we were also out, and it just progressively got to be more time in the clinic setting and less time in the classroom. So I think T9 we had 1 day of classes, and then the rest was clinic time, which was awesome. It was really cool being able to learn from different mentors. So I did most of my interning with Dr. Jeff Lavelle at Specific Family Chiropractic, and that man is a genius. He gets flown around the country and around the world to give talks on nutrition and teach different things there. I was very fortunate to have learned what I learned from him. He's also a Gonstead chiropractor, which I'll talk about that a little bit later. And it was great there. And then my 10th trimester was only an externship. I think we had to go back once for an hour of class or something like that. And I did that with Woody in River Falls here. So that was awesome to be able to spend that time with my mentor, learning from him.
What did you have a trimester where you were working with cadavers?
Yeah, we
2?
did. We had 2 of those.
You're like learning to adjust dead people.
No.
No,
Dead people are super well adjusted.
Kevin would come back home all geeked out because he just worked with a dead body and start describing it in detail to me, and it's like, hey, I just spent all this time preparing this dinner, and here's this nice steak, and look at that, I'm fucking done. Go into my bedroom. Here, have a steak, Kevin, you jackass.
I had a roommate like that.
That
Turned out
sounds
that
like
was
an
a red
intelligent
flag.
move.
Yeah. Well, so in Kevin's defense, he is a redhead. You should have known that was coming. He doesn't have a soul. But yeah, the cadavers. So that was our first 2 trimesters, and that was a really cool experience. The first time you cut into a dead body, it was, yeah, we're going there. It was really weird. It was kind of uncomfortable. I didn't sleep very well the night before and the couple nights after.
Emily, you look like you enjoyed it as much
It
as
was
I did.
so stinky.
Yeah.
I didn't even live with them, but
Yeah. So the smell of formaldehyde got into everything.
Oh, so just
I
like
mean, that's what it
biology
does.
class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just with a human being on the table.
Well, I mean, it's just
Or what's left of one.
I toss cookies trying to dissect a frog. I'm not going to go near a dead body.
It was
Gordon, how do you
it
fish or
was super
hunt?
cool though.
I don't hunt.
Oh, you're losing your libertarian cred as we speak. I don't.
No. I outsource. It's the American way.
My meat comes from the grocery store.
No, from friends and family members that also hunt and don't lock their garage doors.
I just got a ribeye and $11.75.
Is that why those tweakers broke into your house?
Right.
Yeah, so it was really cool. You learned a lot from cutting up a person.
I mean, was that basically, it's just anatomy class?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It was anatomy, and I remember the first day of anatomy class, our teacher goes, "All right, if you've taken anatomy class before, you haven't taken anatomy," and he was very correct. it was the most intense. We had to know where every muscle connected, what it did, what nerve innervated it, and the stuff you'd expect us to know.
Like Mel Brooks, Dead and Loving It, where Van Helsing has a timer going to see how long it takes for the whole class to pass out. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you need to see that.
All right, well, we'll add that in.
It's also one of the hardest
I'm a
classes
Mel
to take your
Brooks fan.
homework home with you.
Yeah, there's
You just
that.
carry this cadaver home. Get pulled over.
Yeah.
No, it's just homework.
One of our test questions in that class was following a drop of blood from the foot, and we had to talk about every every vein that it passed through on the way back to the heart.
Cool, Dexter.
Yeah, yeah, that was difficult.
So you mentioned the Gonstead system. At what point and how many at what point did they start telling you here's different systems of chiropractics, and how many types are there?
That's a really good question. And
Yeah.
following on that, what's the hierarchy of them? Like, what is the best system of chiropractic, and what is
Or is that more
like this is where
you
I
ask
think
17 chiropractors, you can get different answers.
exactly. But
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
this is where I think medicine gets really, really fascinating.
Yep. Yeah. So that's an awesome topic to talk about. So, I knew I wanted to be a Gonstead chiropractor going in because that's what I had seen huge success with.
Let's talk about what it is
Question.
first.
Yeah. The Gonstead system was started by Dr. Clarence Gonstead. He was from Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. Originally a mechanical engineer, so there's that engineering connection that really fascinated me.
is he still alive? Because I know they do the conference down Mount Horeb still.
Yeah, he is not still alive. He died in. Ooh, I should know this. I'm not gonna try to guess. Late 70s, early 80s. I'm embarrassed.
What was
that
his
I
name
don't
again?
know what it was. Clarence Gonstead.
Clarence Gonstead died in 78.
78. Okay. So he was, like I said, he was originally a mechanical engineer. He developed rheumatoid arthritis, got some help from a chiropractor, and thought, oh, that's pretty cool. I want to do this. So he went to chiropractic school. He went to Palmer at the time, which was in Iowa. I think that was the original chiropractic school ever. And he ended up going, okay, how can I make this better? So he took his engineering principles and applied them to chiropractic and came up with this whole system. And it wasn't an instant, oh, this is what I need to do. It took years and years and years to refine. And the whole point of it was find it, fix it, leave it alone. He wanted to figure out what was going on, how to take care of it, and how to make it so they didn't have to constantly come back. Now, the biggest difference between what he was doing and what most other chiropractors were doing is his focus was on the disc. So the disc is in between each vertebra. It's the inside of it is a gel-like substance. The outside are kind of like the cables that hold it in place. This mechanism, if you think of it like a jelly donut, my favorite analogy is if you were to take a Ziploc bag, blow it up, seal it off, put your hand on top of it. You can kind of wiggle back and forth, move around. And that allows the spine to move. It allows you to bend forward, to turn, look up, look down, all of that fun stuff. Now, his goal was focused on this. So because that was the unstable part of the joint complex, when a bone gets out of place, it comes backwards. And so his goal, what he figured out was you set that forward, that'll take pressure off the nerve. Now, when that disc comes backwards, sometimes the disc can put direct pressure on the nerve, but it doesn't necessarily have to get the response that you need, or that causes these different symptoms, whatever they may be, whether it's pain, whether it's, I've had a few people with gut health issues because of this nerve pressure, a lot of people with acid reflux, and so the disc doesn't necessarily have to put pressure on the nerve, because the inflammation chemicals that come in are found to be acidic. So the acid touching those nerves can be enough to cause that irritation. So my goal as a Gonstead chiropractor is to lift the bone back on top of the disc, restore proper movement to the disc to allow that nerve to be freed up and function how it needs to be. So we have a couple different tools for figuring out how to do this. First one that I've run, I have a little tool called the Nervoscope. I've run it every time. Feel free to look it up if you guys are at home listening.
Is that the chart where it comes out like white, green, red?
So it's like a simpler version of that.
Okay.
So there's those subluxation station is the big version of that, and they'll do that on a computer. A lot of places will use that as a selling point to say, oh, look at how imbalanced your nerves are. The Nervoscope is just a little, it's got two little probes that kind of look like your, I don't know, if you look at it like
Just two little prongs.
two little prongs, you kind of look like legs sticking out of a body. And then there's a needle that sits in a casing above that, and the needle should stay in the middle. When I run it down someone's spine, that needle either stays in the middle or just off to one side. When I hit a spot where the nerve is irritated, the needle will shoot over and it'll come back. So that lets me know that, okay, this is where I need to look, this is where that nerve is impinged, this is where I need to check. So
What is that device measuring? Like when it's going down?
Heat temperature.
Okay.
Temperature. So I'm much better with a model than when I have the actual thing in front of me, so this is difficult for me to describe because I'm so used to doing that. When nerve should be firing at about the same rate, but when a nerve gets interfered with, it's gonna change. It's gonna tell the skin what to do differently. It's gonna tell the blood vessels what to do differently. So when that nerve gets interfered with, normally the first thing that happens is it tells the blood vessels to increase blood flow to the area because they're trying to cause that or bring in fresh nutrients to fix the injury, to help it adapt, fix the healing. So at the beginning, when you go down, that needle comes over and comes back. It normally goes over to the hot side. Or it will go over to the hot side, but it comes over to the side where the injury is on. But as that becomes prolonged and it's there for, I don't know the exact time, it varies with everyone, but eventually that nerve will start to desensitize, and that'll end up being the colder side. So as you go down, the needle goes over, comes back, based on temperature, and lets me know, okay, this is where I need to look. I don't care which way the needle goes, because like I said, if it's there for a long time, it's going to go one way. If it's an acute injury, it's going to go the other. It just helps me narrow in on where I need to look closer at. So the next thing that we'd take a look at is I'll poke in there, I'll check for motion, and I'll check for pain. So normally you'll get tenderness if I were to poke right on the spinous process. It'll say, okay, this kind of hurts. I'll be able to feel it and see how it moves. Then I'll go to the one above it, see if there's any more pain there, see if there's any difference with how it moves on that one compared to the one above, the one below. And I normally try to check a couple just so I can get used to understanding what a normal motion is for this person. And then after that, we now I don't x-ray is another big part of it. Now I don't have an x-ray because those are like $50,000.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Get two.
Yeah. So I send people up to River Falls to Woody again for that, and that helps to show me, okay, this is exactly what's going on. Now with the Gonstead system, we do specific x-rays. We have an x-ray that goes from basically the eyes down to the bottom of the pelvis so that we can see what the entire spine is doing all at once. A lot of places will just take sections. So if someone has low back pain, a lot of other chiropractors or a lot of medical facilities will just take pictures of that low back. But I want to see what's happening everywhere. Sometimes people with low back pain, it happens all because of something in their upper neck. If their upper neck is shifted off a little bit, it shifts their equilibrium over to one side or the other, and that's enough to cause. I've seen a couple people come in with really bad low back muscle spasms, and it's because their upper neck is shifted off. So that can
Kinda
create the issue with the low back.
Kind of that old children's song that, the leg bone's attached to the hip bone, hip bone's attached to the back.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really quite fascinating when something like that happens. And then, so on top of the X-ray, then we'll sit down, we'll talk, we'll ask. Obviously, symptoms are going to be important. What's bugging you? And if someone's having low back pain, obviously you're going to look at the low back. You're going to check that too. So the Gonstead system encompasses all of these things, puts them all together, and the sweet spot is going to be the vertebra or the nerve root that all of these help point to and help show this is what we need to work on. So it's a whole system of diagnosing, and then the adjustments are very specific. When I go to adjust someone, it's only moving under my hand. It's not going to move, like I'm not twisting your low back. I'm not getting it to move all the way up and down. I'm not trying to make as much noise as I can. I'm just trying
And that's
to move
something
it in
I
one spot.
noticed when I first started seeing. I've gone to at least a half dozen different chiropractors, and under Gonstead, I don't hear that crack. I'm like, where's the crack? There's supposed to be a crack sound, but that's what I found kind of different. Especially going from Matt and Joel. I mean, they both have their very different systems, but especially under Joel, when I tore my rotator cuff and he had to put my collarbone back into socket.
Yeah.
That is a world of hurt and sound like a brick of black cats going on.
Yeah, the collarbone, that does not feel good. And a lot of times I'll still get noise with the adjustment. Most of the time I do, but it's going to be very isolated to one spot and that kind of thing. So continuing on with the Gonstead system here. So all of that stuff put together, mastered over a number of years. He ended up having a lab in his clinic as well, so that he could figure out, okay, if I were to move the hip this way, if I were to move the pelvis this way, what's going to happen? How's it going to affect the rest of the spine? So when we do our x-rays, we mark them up very specifically, so that we can see, okay, if this person has a short leg, how's it going to affect everything else? If this person has a rotated pelvis and it makes it appear that the leg is short, do they actually have a short leg, or is it purely because the pelvis is rotated in a way that makes it look that way? And I've had a couple people who I've sent for x-ray thinking, okay, they definitely have a short leg, but they've come back and it's been their pelvis was just so rotated that all the symptoms came up because of a short leg. So you adjust the pelvis in that direction and the symptoms go away. It's pretty cool when that happens too. I love when I'm wrong when I send out for an x-ray, because I can always learn from it. And then using this system, Dr. Gonstead ended up becoming so successful that in 1964 he built $1 million clinic. Now $1 million is a lot of money now. It was a heck of a lot more back then. And that clinic had a waiting room that could sit 150 people and was almost always full. I think he had 12 adjusting rooms. Like I said, he had a lab in the basement. He had x-ray. A year later, he built a hotel right by his clinic, so people could stay there while being treated. He built a landing strip at his house so people could fly directly into Mount Horeb to see him.
So he's like the chiropractic version of Mayo.
Yeah. Yep. And funny you say that. Mayo Clinic would refer a lot of their low back patients down to him before doing surgery.
And I saw just recently Mayo Clinic has actually put chiropractors on staff.
Yes,
and
they have.
From what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, they're one of the first major hospitals to do that, or at least part of the AMA.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're one of the first. I think there's... Oh, where's the other one? There's another one in, I want to say, Ohio, that's done that as well.
So on the inflation question, $8.2 million in today's money.
Holy shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then kind of going on that AMA thing, like
The American Medical
the
Association.
American
for anyone
Mag.
listening.
So there's been a lot of contention in the past and even in recent years with chiropractics as a holistic or alternative medicine, and now it's being embraced. Have you seen a change in that, like since the time that you've been?
Great question. So it's tough to say because a lot of that change has been happening, right before I started in school. But you still hear a lot of people who will go to some of the older doctors who've been around for a while, and a lot of them still have a lot of pushback. But I did have a patient recently who was having some pretty bad low back stuff, and he said he told his doctor that he's been getting a lot of help from a chiropractor. So the doctor said, okay, keep going if that helps, but don't go too much. So that right there tells me, okay, he knows that there's benefit to it, but he also knows that some chiropractors who do these different systems or different techniques tend to drag things out.
So having the different techniques, when we really haven't touched on the different systems, but does that so there's been a lot of talk about how like a lot of the systems aren't scientifically valid, like the results aren't reproducible with over large studies.
Does
Do you think that
Northwestern touch on that?
Yeah, and do you think that hurts chiropractic as a whole?
Absolutely, it hurts chiropractic as a whole. And my candid opinion is because some of those systems are not very good. Some of those systems are all about, there's one or two that I can think of that I know decently well, that their job is to get people to come back again and again and again and again, and not necessarily help them, but
And as a patient,
make a lot of money.
definitely
Like
experienced that.
short-term pain relief.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like taking an
Like-
ibuprofen.
I was referred to a chiropractor because I had a rugby injury, and I kind of, now being older and more experienced, I kind of like, I'll give you a 6-month window.
Yeah.
If I'm not seeing consistent improvement, I'm going to go to the next guy. But
And with how I do it, my goal is I expect to see major changes in 3 visits. Most of the time, if I don't see that, I go, okay, I'm missing something. So depending on what we find in the exam. So if exam shows, okay, you possibly have a herniated disc, well, that's going to take a little bit longer. But most of the time I expect results really quick. I've had, because I don't have an x-ray, oftentimes I'll work with people 2 or 3 times. If we don't see that result, I'll say, okay, I'm missing something. I need that x-ray. And that's definitely a big part of it. The one system that I was talking about before, they make absurd claims like, ooh, see this spot here? This is T5. T5 goes to your lungs. If you don't come in every week for the rest of your life, you're gonna have cancer because of that. And that's like, that totally does a disservice.
Only in California.
Let's be fair. Everything in California gives you cancer.
Yeah.
So to back it up a little bit, how many
Yeah.
different systems are there? And did Northwestern for you say, here are X number that work, but these Y are just snake oil salesmen? Or do they kind of leave it more for interpretation rather than trying to influence you to go one direction or the other?
Oh, lovely question. There are, I guess, if we were to look it up right now, I know, for a couple of years I've been saying there's over 150 different name techniques. I know there's at least 150. I don't know exactly what that number is up to now, because so many people will come out with something new that takes, parts of other ones, puts them together, figures out what they like, what they don't like, what works for them. Did you find a number?
I'm trying.
Okay.
Oh, wow. No, I haven't found an actual number. I just found lots of lists.
Okay.
And nobody wants to put a number on it.
Yeah.
You get like the 5 most common, and then a list of like 200-300.
How many, to break it down, how many does Northwestern offer to teach, or at least give you a focus point on?
So they specifically teach one. They specifically, like, their main focus is on the diversified, which plucks stuff from a whole bunch of different techniques. And makes it easy to teach. But they have different clubs that are options. The activator's a big one that they'll talk quite a bit about, and they actually teach us a little bit about that. So activator is using a little tool. It's called an activator.
It's a bastard. Especially if you had torn rotator cuff.
Yeah. I actually had one guy do something called torque release technique, which is very similar to an activator. He focused just on the upper neck, and it actually made a difference pretty quick, which was cool. But I don't know, it's not as exciting to me. That's the main one they talk about. They'll talk about Gonstead a little bit, but they mention it. It's more so as this is what it was. The teacher who taught the class that was supposed to dive into these different techniques actually incorrectly taught a few of the pieces of it. She was talking. So those are the main ones. There's a class called, or there's a technique called NUCA, which is the National Upper Cervical Chiropractic Association. And they're one that I find absolutely fascinating. They have amazing results. Their whole focus is on aligning the occiput, so the head, the atlas, so the first vertebra in your neck, and the axis, the second vertebra in your neck. Their whole goal is to align those, and they get absolutely amazing, incredible results. I took a class on that, and I volunteered to be the patient because I'm going to learn better. I'm very much hands-on visual learner. So by being the patient for that, I learned quite a bit. I felt incredible after doing that. It never quite fixed my pelvis for me. My hips never quite got where I know they can be through my Gonstead system training and my Gonstead chiropractor, but the rest of me felt as good as I've ever felt. So they're one that I have immense respect for. I've actually had, I think, 2 patients that I've referred to a NUCA doctor when I ran out of options and when I couldn't get them better. So that's one of the programs that I really like. I think is cool.
You say nuke, and I can't help but picture a doctor from like Fallout 3.
Nuka-Cola, if you keep drinking it, you're going to heal yourself. And you get money each time you do one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you mentioned earlier that the chiropractor that you saw focused on the Gonstead system.
Yep.
When you went to school and you're now introduced to the did you diversify?
Yep.
What made you want to focus on the Gonstead?
It was my results from him, and seeing how much of a effect he had on other people. Like I mentioned before, when we started, so this is another story here. When we first started learning adjustments, we practiced them on each other. So chiropractic school was like the worst my spine has ever felt.
Not a bisque commercial.
Is weird. Ooh, it sounds delicious. So
Gordon, keep your show on topic.
easy to get off here.
Very professional outfit.
It's always easy for Gordon to get off.
Bazinga.
Next.
Well, especially since he went to a chiropractor.
We're
Be a
all very
really awkward
professional.
exam.
Right. We did have to learn to do that kind of exam as well. Yeah.
I remember hearing stories about that.
Did it end
I can
happily?
imagine.
I don't
I'm so curious now.
I have so
Where
many
they adjust your
questions.
tailbone. from what I understand. The very watered down version.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
I feel like we just like hit on like some PTSD territory. Like,
No. They did teach us sort of how to do an internal tailbone adjustment.
so that's just a prostate massage then, right?
You flip your finger the other way, but yes.
Does it have the same result?
I guess I don't know.
This interview has taken a turn.
I'm surprised it took us this long.
Fortunately, that's not one that we had to do on each other. We had
Or
You
unfortunately.
do it on yourself?
No.
Worst reach around I've ever had.
But
I'm not that flexible.
yeah. So the male exam was before we went in. The teacher did say, now after you do this, if you turn your hand around, you'll be able to tickle the inside of the tailbone, and you should all try that because that feels kind of cool. Yeah, that's that.
So
happened.
your teacher was like, well, so if this doesn't work out, sex work is.
If you find the right clientele.
That's just the other side of the clinic, right?
Yep.
There's actually a guy in the cities, I forget exactly where he is, Burnsville maybe, who only does internal coccyx adjustments. He charges like $150 a time.
Okay, so to be specific,
Yes.
what is an internal coccyx adjustment for?
So if the coccyx, which is the very bottom part of the tailbone.
It's the remnants of our tail.
Yes, the remnants of our tail. If you land on that too hard, and that can separate from the sacrum, and the tip of it can move forward, in comparison to where it should be. Your finger goes right inside where you'd think it would go, and you give it a little tug backwards. Again, not something I've done, not something I do in my clinic, but it's something that they at least told us about, and told us how to do.
Is it to relieve pain? Is it to relieve like erectile dysfunction? Is it like what's the benefit of doing
That's a
it?
great question. As far as I know, just pain.
Okay.
That's the only thing we were talked about it for. I imagine it can have other effects as well. I haven't heard anything specifically on, but it very well could affect ED as well.
I was just curious.
No,
Like,
it's a great question. Yeah,
I'll vouch for surgery.
I really don't know.
I mean, Gordon, it's an invasive thing for the most part.
I want to be
Like-
knocked smooth out under gas.
Oh, 40's going to be a rough year for you, bud.
I'll be dead by 50, 55. I'm shooting for 60. So like I said, I've gone to many different chiropractors.
Yeah.
I mean, at your office, do you use any machines to help? Like I've used rolling tables, drop tables, e-stim to kind of help loosen up
Oh
the
god, I
muscles.
love e-stim.
Yes,
So
I just
much.
got a portable unit at home, and I've burned out like 3 sets of batteries already.
Little TENS unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are nice. No, I do not. I have I've got a couple unique pieces of equipment. What? No.
Just gonna unplug something.
My wife was kicking me. I didn't know why.
Probably something you said.
I was trying to be subtle, but
Yeah.
No, that's
We don't
where
do that
you're
around
sitting,
here.
Emily, is cursed. I sat there doing nothing. My feet were still, and all of a sudden the cords wrapped around my leg. Like, what is going on?
oh, so it'll be my fault.
Again, that's just you, Gordon.
No, Brian. That's why he has the clip. If you see Brian,
Yeah, no,
on
we
VOL.
have the clip to fix Gordon's problem.
Brian's problem. I sit here.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
What was the question?
What kind of equipment do you use?
Oh yes. So I have specific Gonstead tables. I have something called a cervical chair, which has a back, so a seat back that can go up and down. That's where I start people every time. so I can run that little nervous scope up and down their spine. I can see, start figuring out. That's where I'll do most of my analysis each time they come in. And then I have what's called a pelvic bench, which is a cloth covered table. So I have 2 cloth covered tables, and that makes it so that when I go to adjust someone, I don't have to rely on pinning their shoulder back, because that puts the spine out of a neutral position and it twists the spine a little bit too much. So again, I want to be as specific as possible. You twist the spine, it's tough to be as specific as possible. So the cloth table just gives me a little bit more control. I can adjust the segment straightforward. And then I have something called a high-low table, which it starts standing up. So someone will step onto a platform, put their hands and face on a spot, and then it slowly goes down. And the really nice thing about this table is the chest piece moves out of the way. It's spring loaded, so when I go to adjust someone's mid back, I'm not crushing their ribs, which I really appreciate when I'm on one of those tables compared to when I'm just on a flat table getting adjusted. And then I have something called a knee chest table, which is a very Gonstead specific table. I don't use it a ton because it puts people in kind of an uncomfortable position. It's basically like you're down on all fours, but it works super well to adjust the mid back, low back. I can adjust anything on there, and it's one of the best tables I can use. But like I said, I don't like to use it too much because it's kind of uncomfortable to have your tushy up in the air. And then with the as I mentioned, the cervical chair at the beginning too, it's called cervical chair because that's where I adjust the neck. So most chiropractors that you go to, when they adjust the neck, they'll lay you down on a table and twist your head to get the motion to get that noise in your neck. But as I mentioned at the beginning, my goal is to affect the disc. And in order to get the correct angle to lift the bone back on top of the disc, if someone's lying on their back, you have to have, you basically have to lean down at such an angle that the shoulders get in the way in order to lift. So it's really impractical to do it that way. There are a few times where that's the only way I've been able to get someone's neck to move, and that actually has only been one time that's been the case. But sometimes that is the best way to go because it's all about the patient. It's all about what way can you help the patient the best. But most of the time I adjust them in the chair sitting up. It allows me to be more specific, to move only the bone I want, affect the disc I want, and a lot of people find it less intimidating because there's not the big twisting motion involved. And it's safer because not twisting also reduces stress on the vertebral arteries, which can do some damage if they're weakened already.
And you've mentioned, you did track in high school and you're a pole vaulter, and you're now working with the local school gym supervisor, was it?
Yeah, so it was weight room supervisor last year.
So with that, do you see more patients that are former or current athletes coming to you? Or do you work with more people that might have had a routine injury, like they fell off a ladder, or maybe they were in an accident?
Well, also, is there an ethical question there? Like, can you recommend kids that you're working with to come to your clinic?
And that's always the struggle that I run into. In my opinion, I would rather have them come to me because I am going to get them better quick. I'm going to get them... Oh, this is an awkward spot.
You see them outside of just what they can tell you at the clinic, too.
Yep. So that gives it... And in my opinion, I can get them better quicker.
Are you covered under HIPAA? Like, is that something you have to worry about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, there's 2 other chiropractors in town. One of them does a really good job. The other one is one of those that kind of strings people along. I'm gonna not go into who's who.
We should talk about that later because my wife goes frequently.
We'll
and I
talk
don't
about
know
that
which
off
one.
air.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I meant.
I don't need a lawsuit. I can't afford that right now. I got a ticket to pay off.
Yeah. So I feel like I can get them better quicker.
Okay.
So I will. Or if I know they already go to someone, I just say, okay, go see a chiropractor. Let them.
If they're not going to somebody, you'll suggest you. But
Yeah.
it like for you, is that an ethical issue at all? Where because you're dealing with them outside of that, and then you're like, I guess you're doing it from one position of authority and being like, hey, you should go see me in this other position of authority. Do you see any?
Absolutely,
Okay.
I see that, and that's the main reason why I feel uncomfortable suggesting that. So
Okay.
a lot of people I won't, but if they ask, I'll say yes.
Okay.
This is. I try not to push it. I don't push it unless.
No, it seems like a
somebody
very difficult position to be in.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but it's a good. On the flip side, it's a really nice chance for me to build a relationship with, that's not why I do this, but it's
Yeah.
a chance.
potential patient. Like,
Yeah.
But it's a unique situation where you can make an adjustment and then you can see them.
Yeah.
You can see the direct result.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of the time, with someone who has this, I'll give them stretches, I'll give them exercises they can do, in the weight room so that they can do that instead of coming to see me, and then,
As almost like a preventative.
Yeah, yep, and about half the time, that takes care of it itself.
Oh, awesome.
And that's
Okay.
been a big one for me because I've seen
Yeah.
chiropractors that I ask, how do I keep this from happening down the road? They're like, oh, but
Come see
more
me twice a
recently, the
week.
chiropractor I was to talk to, like, do this, this, and this, and even my physical therapist, hey, how are you coming along on your homework?
Yeah.
Great.
That's
Gordon's never
that's
been
the
very good
great
at
that
homework.
Gordon has given every employer and teacher he's ever had.
Yeah.
How's this project I gave you? It was due yesterday.
It's going great.
There's a project?
Great.
Yeah. So the goal, like I said, is always find it, fix it, leave it alone. I don't want them to have to come back. 'Cause in my opinion, the more I have to see them, the worse job I'm doing.
So kind of leading off of that,
Yeah.
we've talked about the different like other schools of chiropractics. Schools might be the right word. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like. So Joe Schmo going into a new chiropractor's office, are there any like big warning flags that you'd be like, if somebody promises you this or says this or is gonna do this thing, turn around, leave, find somebody else?
Ooh.
I'm not asking to name names. I'm just
No,
I-
I'm not.
I, like,
no.
yeah.
I think if you're uncomfortable with what they're asking you to do, whether it's monetary wise or time wise, if you feel like it's too much, that should be a red flag to you.
Yep.
That's what I would say.
Yep. I'm glad she's here because.
No, but is there any like and from like this is 100% opinion based,
Yeah.
but is there any like procedure or something, or like if they're like, oh well, or if they promise like, well, this will cure your
Cancer.
or whatever, like
It's definitely a red flag.
if you hear someone say that,
like over promising is a big one.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, so that's illegal. First of all, to make a claim like that. So one of the
How does homeopathy
The-
get away
the-
with it? I'm just saying.
yeah, no. So one of the big legal and ethical and philosophical points of chiropractic is chiropractors do not cure anything. We simply remove subluxation, remove nerve interference so that the body can function its best. And we believe that the human body is going to treat itself.
So you treat the symptom, not the disease.
We treat the cause of the symptom, and the disease is a symptom.
Okay.
So if we can treat the cause of a symptom, and it happens to help the disease, or dis-ease is the philosophical term. That's kind of what we do. So, like,
Okay.
you know, someone comes in with bronchitis. I'm not going to adjust a spot and fix the bronchitis. I'm going to adjust a spot if I find one that correlates, that is going to hopefully help the body help itself more. That being said, if you have bronchitis, you should probably go see your medical doctor.
And I guess that's a kind of a follow-up question on that. Do you have people who come in and they think that you're going to be able to treat their disease and then or their issue, and you're like, you should probably go see a general practitioner and get some sort of like antibiotic or something?
Yes.
Okay.
That hasn't happened a ton, but I think I've had it 2 or 3 times in my 2 years of practice now, where that's been the case.
Well, I think you made the important statement. Like, you might make an adjustment and it might help,
Yeah.
but it's corollary.
Yes.
Like, it's not causation or
Correlation.
Yeah.
definitely
Correlation
does
isn't
not
causation.
function. Yeah. Yep. And that happens. I'm not going to claim to.
well, you can see that. You can think from the
Yeah.
idea that, like, you know, if someone's breathing is restricted because of their structure or something, and you're able to release tension, like, it might help with a breathing problem, but it's
Yeah.
not necessarily
Or if you,
curing their.
Get thrown onto a rock and twist C 4, 5, no, 5, 6, and 7.
Or if some
And,
asshole lands between your neck and shoulder because you tackled them wrong. Like,
Talked about
a lot of
that wasn't you.
personal
That was-
experiences here. I don't.
black belt test. No, brown belt test. Excuse me. Working with a black belt candidate, got thrown
Yeah.
onto a rock and twisted 3 vertebrae.
Oh damn.
Felt awesome trying to get through Monday until my the Matt or Joel, I can't remember who I saw, was back in the office. Walked in there kind of hobbling like an old man with a cane, and they're like, what happened? I fell on a freaking rock. I'm like, oh, come here. But
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of movement the other way, like medical practitioners sending people your guys' way, like like people like GPs and stuff like that
Yeah.
sending?
I don't have a relationship with really any medical doctors in the
Okay.
area right now, so I don't get them to send to me. But one of my mentors, and I've experienced this, is like Gonstead chiropractic practices are often built on medical failures. So something that's outside of a medical doctor's wheelhouse that they can't help with is something that we oftentimes can.
Okay.
We can oftentimes get some really good results based on that. I've got a patient who was having a lot of gut health issues. She'd gone medical route a whole bunch of times, found some, and they couldn't figure it out. She came into me. I sent her for an x-ray, saw what I thought the problem was, treated that, and it got a lot better. Now, when things get out of whack, out of place, they come back. But right now, this particular patient is doing a exercise program that I had written for her as well to specifically target and strengthen that area. So hopefully she'll have to come to me less and less in the future.
Awesome.
Do you foresee the two fields kind of working together more in the future? Especially, we're kind of, our generation's at the point, it's almost like a changing of the guard. The post baby boomer generation is now coming to the retirement age. We're moving in to fill those spots, especially, at least in the circles that I follow. The public perception of prescribed opioids seems to be changing more and more.
What's if they're a
Well,
lot
just
of
give
fun?
people heroin. I mean,
Well,
way cheaper.
And then you give them morphine to get them off the heroin.
Yeah.
Do you see the AMA and chiropractic worlds kind of working more in conjunction 20, 30 plus years down the road from now?
I sure hope so. As you guys said earlier, like Mayo Clinic's taking chiropractors on. That's huge. With the current insurance
Debacle, I think, is the right word.
Yes. It becomes a lot more appealing to go to a chiropractor to spend $35 to try to take care of something than go to a medical doctor to
Right.
spend $450.
As long as you're going to the right
Like
chiropractor.
Correct.
I could say, like, that's
Correct.
the only reason I've been to a chiropractor. I cracked 2 ribs, and it was cheaper to go to a chiropractor for X-rays than it was.
And I think,
Yeah.
well, and I think, like, at least
clinic.
from the public perception, at least mine, that's the problem is you have to find the right chiropractor. There's
Yes.
there's not like a true governing body that's making sure that they're
But-
all.
even
Correct.
with a governing body, like the same is true of GPs.
Yes, but
You know, you have to
your
find
your
the
odds
right doctor.
become a lot
Yes,
higher
yes.
when you have that governing body,
There are a
that's-
lot of
and your
charlatans.
your trust level goes
Yes.
up.
And that's one of the
Agree.
beautiful and frustrating things about chiropractic is there's so many different systems. You have to find the one that's going to work best for you. So what I do may not be best for.
What your issue is?
Yeah. I like to think that I'm going to be able to help most people. They say 80% of. Drop my other fidget. Oh, there's another one here.
Don't worry, we'll just keep finding more fidgets.
Carlos is sitting on DOO, and so there's plenty
He
down here.
fidgets enough, yeah. Like.
You should just have like a collection of spinners.
Yeah. There
Well,
we
no.
go.
So the problem with spinners and cubes and stuff is they make noise.
That's true.
Yeah.
Can't have that with microphones.
This little cap works fantastic. So the beautiful thing and tough thing is there's so many different types. What works best for some people might not work best for others, like I said. But they say that like 80% of people are going to get better with anything you do. You could hit someone in the back with a frying pan. This is a misquote by, I'm going to misquote B.J. Palmer here. So D.D.U. Palmer was the founder of chiropractic. B.J. Palmer, his son, was considered the developer of chiropractic. His quote was, you're going to get 80% of the people better by hitting them in the back with a frying pan. So, because it's going to create some sort of changes. So my goal is to affect that other 20%. I want to help the 80% too, but I want to help that other 20% who maybe hasn't gotten help elsewhere.
Have you thought about installing just a spinning frying pan in your garage?
Not a bad idea.
I only give everything a shot once.
So yeah. Yeah. So that's, and the Wisconsin actually has kind of 2 governing bodies. They have the specific Wisconsin board, but then there's another one that they're constantly kind of going back and forth with, and they have different philosophical views. One of them is pushing to give Wisconsin chiropractors prescription rights under the idea that it makes it easier for us to help people get off of some of these prescriptions that they don't necessarily need. But then the other problem is, as soon as we get those rights, are we just going to, not just going to, but are we going to become more closely related to medical doctors and osteopaths, who osteopaths started out much more similar to chiropractors and then became basically another type of medical doctor. So there's kind of that.
But
that
I mean, you're
challenge, yeah.
like, isn't the eventual goal to be considered on the same level as medical? Like, I mean, as far as chiropractic as a whole, like, you want that to be just considered another form of medicine.
Depends.
Mm.
So so again, this is back to do we want to, I don't know, this is a tough one because the way I see it, we're on the same level treatment wise, but sorry, I'll keep close to this. But like we don't want to, we want to stay different. We want to keep our uniqueness.
You want to keep your uniqueness, but as far as trust from the American public and trust from, and this is purely from an American standpoint, but like having like chiropractors brought into the Mayo Clinic and stuff, like you want that like anybody who works, you know, in there, you want that to be part of the medical practice.
Yeah.
And once you're part of the medical practice, it's easier to share data. It's easier to refer each other to each other, and I feel like that opens up so many doors as far as studies and making things more quote unquote legitimate. And
That's where my conversation first started. If you remember, Carl, 2 years ago, is my original idea for the arena was become a gym, but have chiropractors, physical therapists, massage therapists under the same roof, would be able to refer people out to medical doctors and x-rays and such. Because when I injured my shoulder, I'm going between the medical doctor, the shoulder specialist, the x-ray tech, the chiropractor, the physical therapist.
well, and
Well,
not
the
all
other
of them
five-
will agree, and they
Right.
won't
Right.
talk to
But
each other.
they didn't talk to each other, and that's where I'm like, what the? I don't know what this one said, but it kind of sounded like this in English.
No, but and so like,
But,
you,
if you're going between facility to facility and person to person, like it's the idea of having one under one or everyone under one roof is kind of interesting.
because
And I can come from that. Like my dad, I grew up with a parent who makes prosthetics and orthotics,
Uh-huh.
and so he's getting referrals from podiatrists, from doctors, and like our opinion, is that like podiatrists are really, really, really eager to push surgery for a fix that can either be corrected by orthotics or potentially chiropractic work.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of interesting, the idea of having everybody under one house. So like you're getting together, you're discussing you're actually discussing your patient problems, and seeing whose result is going to have more.
so you ask, so you gave that example of podiatrist wants to do surgery. Well, you ask a surgeon how to fix a problem, they're going to say surgery.
Right, exactly.
Like you ask a GP, they're going to say medication. They're like, it's every tool is solved by a hammer if the only
Right.
or every problem is solved by a hammer if the only tool you have is a hammer.
Right.
Like, and
There's
so
a lot of truth
It's
to that
actually
statement.
solved by duct tape, but
No, but so the more tools you have in your toolbox, which
Right,
is
yes,
why I think
exactly.
like Mayo and those guys are bringing chiropractics in.
Yeah.
But if we can put them under the umbrella of like
As a-
defined medical treatments,
as a patient, my frustration was what I'm trying to translate what everybody else said. But I mean, I struggle enough with English, and then you try to throw medical terms in there, I'm up Shit's Creek.
Would
Por
you
qué,
prefer
Gordon?
like
Yeah, no habla English, lady.
Gordon converses more diligently in grunts and groans than
there's a reason his nickname is Groot.
a single word. It's all about intonation.
So yeah, that having them all under one roof, in that respect, the communication between them would be so much better. It would make everyone's job easier. Like you said, if you're first if you go into a surgeon first to get an opinion on something, they're going to recommend surgery. If you go to a chiropractor first, they're going to recommend chiropractic treatments. There's actually a bunch of research on that shows if your first experience for a back injury is with a chiropractor, you are, I think, 85 to 90% less likely to need surgery. If your first experience is with a surgeon, it's like a 60% rate
Or
of
someone
going into
or a
surgery.
doctor that refers to a surgeon.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna get surgery.
When I
Yeah.
injured my back the first time, that's like surgery, whatever. But then they show me the recovery time, and like, here's everything that could go wrong. I'm like,
Right.
please tell me there's some other option.
That's
out there.
huge. I mean, like
Yeah.
that's huge. I really, again, I am not a medical professional, but I grew up in this term. Like, I think surgery should really be a last
Well,
resort
and
in
so
most cases.
I think the problem is, and again, personal experience is right now, chiropractics is in that holistic and that alternative medicine. Which you look at the term alternative medicine, and that has homeopathy, that has acupuncture, that has the what's the thing with little pots that
Essential oils.
suction.
the suction bullshit. Like, it has all of these things that are complete horseshit. And then you have
Kinesthesiology.
chiropractics, which
Yep.
actually has
But
some merit behind
you don't need your vaccinations if you just burn your essential oils every day. It's fine.
I will shoot you in the face. Gordon.
Yeah, so Gordon, this is the
Vaccinate your
last
children.
show on you.
Well, folks, it's been a good run.
So that's where this is going.
Yeah.
Gordon's now outed himself
Sarcasm.
as
Sarcasm for the record.
anti-vaxxer.
Rules of the Arena podcast does not support essential oils or not vaccinating your kids.
Yeah, no, if you don't vaccinate, please don't listen.
Yeah, there's another podcast out there for you, I'm sure.
Vaccinations are out of my scope of practice.
That is the right answer.
Anyway, but like I just come at this from the point of view from the prosthetic side. Like when you watch people who have had a dramatic physically altering surgery.
Well, let's look at our guest last week, Gordon. What was his name?
Last week?
Yeah.
Sydney something.
Sydney Smith, yes.
Sydney Smith.
Out of Utah.
Yes.
Triathlete, double
Oh
amputee.
yeah. I was really bummed to miss that one. I was excited about that. But like,
Which, for the record, this is the most organized podcast he's ever been on.
He hasn't been on that many podcasts.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Anyway.
Anyways, just simply my comment. Like I've seen a lot of people go through the ongoing, like, regardless of losing a limb, like that surgery can have all kinds of complications. You know, like your wound cannot heal, your stump changes over time, blah blah. Like it's dramatic, and if it's someone's first option, like there's gotta be a.
Most of the time, if it's coming down to an amputation, that's
Well,
the only
So I
option.
feel like we've completely derailed from where we started. Gordon, what was the original question?
Yes.
All right.
I wanted to change gears here. You know, we've kind of beat the dead horse on the chiropractic side of things and derailed a half dozen times, but the business side,
makes it fun. Yeah.
you started One Life Chiropractic yourself, correct? Or
Yep.
You didn't buy an existing business
No,
from
I
another
did not.
doctor? So why, you mentioned there's already 2 chiropractors in town.
Yep.
Why did you choose Prescott, Wisconsin? And
There are
well, first
two-
off, I suppose, why did you
More
want
important, I want to. There are two other chiropractors in Prescott.
Yes.
I
Four
did-
other doctors, 2 other businesses.
Okay, I did not realize
Or 3
Prescott
other
was that big.
doctors. Sorry, it's not.
I was gonna say it's like to me it's a stoplight and
mean,
a bridge that I drive.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a special brand of
hey, it's
crazy
bigger than
for-
Ellsworth.
I don't go to Ellsworth. I buy Ellsworth cheese curds elsewhere.
It takes a special brand of crazy for somebody to go, I want to throw caution to the wind and open up
And
my
start
own
a
business.
podcast.
Yeah, this is very low risk comparatively.
So this is what
So-
Ben's like when he gets drunk.
What made you want to start your own
Should've
practice?
seen me Friday night.
Especially in today's market. I mean, it's fairly saturated, especially
Yeah.
with 2 other businesses already in town.
So the main reason we chose Prescott is because my wife got a job teaching there. She's a kindergarten teacher, and we want
Brave soul.
You know,
Yeah.
you are so good.
Yeah, she's.
How's
incredible.
nap time, by the way? Is that delightful or
It's-
amazing?
It's barely existent and not referred to as napping anymore, actually. It's
What?
just a quiet downtime because kids refuse to nap.
Okay,
I think
but
she
sleep
might
if you
be
want.
one of your
Once in a
next.
blue moon, they will fall asleep, but not typically. They're a little too excited.
Tragedy. I miss my carpet square.
I guess apparently it's been 25 years since I've had nap time. I don't know.
Yeah, things have changed.
It's just called day drinking now.
Yeah.
Then falling asleep in the sun.
Yeah. Anyway.
So she got her job there. We wanted the simple live where we work.
Small
Mhm.
Where we
town,
live.
small town thing.
Yeah, so we just went
Decided to
for
give it a shot.
There was another place that I was looking at working for. I spent a little bit of time with him, and it just did not seem to be a good fit. And I wanted to do Gonstead. I wanted to do it my way. And there aren't a ton of Gonstead practices, and there are even less who are looking to hire an associate. So it just seemed the best route professionally and personally to take.
Did your internships play any role into influencing you to want to start your own practice?
It's a good question. There actually one of them was looking for an intern, and I was tempted on that, but that would have been on the north side of the cities, and I didn't want to. Yeah, my 3 years at grad school was enough to tell me I don't want to be
Or
in
you
the
want to
cities.
take the 494, 694 loop every day?
Correct.
Oh,
Ooh,
especially with it
right
under
now.
construction.
So much
Yeah.
fun. I've done it twice in the last month.
Yeah. So,
Shut
w-
up, Casey.
both of the places I did internship at, they were both very supportive. I still ask them questions, every other week or so about something I can do, how to change this, what to do. So they definitely supported me starting my own, and have been awesome to help assist me with it.
Of course, being grad school being as cheap as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you go about finding the funding to start your own practice? Did you do a business loan or did you go to investors?
Yes, my dad gave me $3,000, and I started it with that.
Nice.
And
So after the first semester, what did you?
every semester was 13,000 for school.
Not terrible.
So I'm fortunate that I do not live an extravagant lifestyle. I had some friends who took out the max loan, so that was, the tuition plus however much for living.
Mm-hmm.
I had some friends who took that much out, and then by the end of the semester couldn't afford to buy food.
Wow.
Whereas I took out about 3,000 less each semester, because, like I said, I fed myself on $3 a day. I didn't go out and party 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week.
I didn't say
7
my
nights
student
a
loans
week,
bought me a
4
lot
nights
of
a
beer.
Right?
Wait, those were supposed to go to classes?
No.
No, that's not
It's like you always knew when loan disbursement day was because everybody was at the bar.
Yeah.
Did you move into an existing building or did you buy it and lease or do you own? where
Ooh,
you're
that's a
at?
good question. So
Yeah.
dovetailing off of that, what does your practice look like? Is it in your home? Do you rent a business or rent a storefront? Do you?
I would love to have it in my home, but I'd have to have a separate entrance for that.
Mm-hmm.
But right now I'm in the old Jake Seed building in Prescott. It's now called the Power Building.
So like right downtown?
Nope, it's
Okay.
actually in the middle of town. It's a big brown building. There's a Shangri-La salon is in there. There's a seamstress in there. Seems like new.
So if I'm coming from the north,
This is a one-stop shop.
down the
Yeah.
hill,
I can
The
get
dance- the
adjusted.
dance studio's in there.
you get hyper local here. If
Hey,
I'm coming from the
Jig
north
on.
and you come down the hill, you come to the intersection and the bridge is off to the right. Would I be going left then?
Yep, you'd go left
okay,
up
yeah,
the
that- yep,
hill,
okay.
and then you'd have to take another left when you hit the. I don't know how familiar you are, but
Local jokes get you local work, guys.
I want local work.
yeah. Do you know where the Dollar General is in town? So if you know where the Dollar General is, we're right down that street. We're on a street that kind of splits the now intermediate school and elementary school. It's pretty easy to find. Most people who live in Prescott for a while know the old Jake Seed building.
Gordon's best at finding the remedial school.
Yeah, so it's a pretty easy to find. Most people in town know the old Jake Seed building or know where Stella Dance is.
And so you said you got a loan from your dad to get the business started. Did
Yep.
he make you present any kind of business plan to him, or
Nope.
lucky?
Yeah,
Isn't it the beauty of working with parents?
Yeah, I told him what I needed, so he bought me a computer. He paid for like my first month's rent. What else did I get with that? Table.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'd had the actually the high-low table. I bought that from Kevin, who got it from his chiropractor, and then I had that refurbished. So That's
Was that
mostly
the
what
big
it went
the
to.
big brown one?
It's brown now.
It was
used,
red.
Yeah, it used to be red. I don't think he had it too long.
Leather or no?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I know what you're talking.
Okay.
Yeah. I just remember that he had this massive Cadillac-sized table that took up a quarter of the damn garage for a few months.
Yep, that was that.
With the broken wire.
Yep.
On the, oh, so it was that
Yep,
one.
that one.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I moved it once, and then I'm like, next time I touch it, it's going in the burn pile.
It
yeah.
looks much better now.
Yep, I got it refurbished. Had a guy come out and take care of that, and he did a fantastic job. So, a table from the 1970s is still going strong.
That's
It's pretty cool.
solid.
Going
Yeah.
through opening, getting the business open, and then the first, we'll say 6 months. I mean, did you have anyone that you could lean on and kind of talk to that had any experience going through this? Like any old internships, the docs that you worked with?
Yeah. Like I said, I've been in contact with them. Woody helped me quite a bit. Jeff helped me quite a bit. Yeah, they both made a huge difference, helping me get going, telling me what kind of things I need to do, what kind of things helped. Yeah, what else? So I started the business. I actually started renting from a lady who owns what's called the Golden Lotus Healing. Well, it used to be the Golden Lotus Healing Center. She now changed the name to Love Embodied. She does energy healing. I don't fully understand it. She had some cool results. But the spot that I was eyeing ended up coming available, so I ended up moving just down the hall from where I was within the same building, and all the spaces are split up by like individual offices. So right now I have 4 offices that are all connected, and I just have some doors going from one to the next to work out of.
So now, do you work alone in your office? Are you running, the one man with many hats, or have you hired any employees on?
It is just me. My mom comes and cleans sometimes, which is fantastic. My wife comes down and yells at me to clean, and then cleans herself, which is also fantastic.
Jeez, my mom is gonna do it on Wednesday, okay?
Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, mostly just me down there.
Being a new business, you said 2 years now you've
Yep.
been in practice, and I know I ran into this when I was painting houses for a living. Have you ever had those days, weeks, or even months where you're just kind of pinching pennies, looking at the bills coming in, like asking yourself, how the hell am I going to get through this?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I actually ended up looking for a part-time job about 6 months after. So I opened in March of 2017. In October of 2017, I ended up getting a long-term sub position at the elementary school as a special ed aide. And I continue that, so I still work as a special ed aide a couple days a week. I absolutely love it. I love working with those kids. But that helps to cover the it helped to cover the car payment. Just paid that off. Woohoo! And cover the day-to-day living expenses. The business so far has been able to support itself. I haven't had to put anything extra into that. So always looking. And then we both coach track, so that brings in a little bit more. I run the concession stands at the home basketball and volleyball games, so that helps a little bit more. They just changed the weight room position that I've been doing to a strength and conditioning coach, which I applied for that for the fall. So we'll see when that becomes official if I end up with that position as well. But I always look. Plus, I love being involved in the schools. It's a lot of fun to work with those kids and get to know those kids and get to know their families.
And of course, being as a business owner, I mean, I've dealt with it, the tax side of things, and trying to balance a budget every month. I mean, how hard was it for you to try to navigate the tax laws as a chiropractor, because it's your business, and then of course keeping the personal side of things separate from that. And do you go through an accountant, or are you doing all that yourself?
So we have an accountant that we file our taxes with each year, Gene Champlin out of Prescott. It's actually, the taxes part is pretty easy right now, because my business I have a single member LLC, so it just counts as part of my taxes with that. So we just have to do our personal taxes there, and then the sales taxes they send, because I don't make a ton off of sales right now. About the only things I sell are supplements, and I have some like an icy hot type lotion that I sell that I like a little bit better.
BioFreeze by chance?
Nope.
Okay.
It's actually called
Something better, Gordon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's why.
is.
That's a really. I've used BioFreeze before, and it's a low bar.
Yeah, I don't mind BioFreeze, but this stuff is it's called Tox Out. It's made by a guy I think over in Buffalo, Minnesota, and he takes the ingredient.
Essential oils.
Yeah, essential oils. The ingredients on it are like peppermint essential oil, eucalyptus essential oil, menthol essential oil, carbomere, which is like the lotiony stuff that it's in. And I really like that stuff. It's smoother than BioFreeze. It doesn't turn my hands blue, which BioFreeze would do. So I can use it quite a bit. And it lasts a little bit longer. So it's something that I really like. I have quite a few people who.
It's a mix between a menthol cigarette and a mojito.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Like, I quit smoking a long time ago, but that sounds amazing.
Now, did grad school help you kind of prepare for the business side of this, or was the focus point, or did you take any classes to try to supplement that in?
There was a business class every semester throughout. It gave you some good things. It didn't cover everything. It didn't cover some of the stuff that I think was more important looking at it now on how to do. But it did cover quite a bit. It covered how to like, one of the big things was how to talk to patients, and just how to build that. Like, you don't think of those little things like writing your scripts, which I haven't technically written them down, but writing your scripts, talking about how to say, okay, this is how we should proceed moving forward. He went into some different ideas for marketing, but it was always just kind of touching. Didn't really dive deep into any specific things. So it was a really good outline. There's some things like working with insurance companies I wish you would have gone into a little bit deeper.
Is there any class out there that can prepare you for that? Because that seems to be a common theme amongst chiropractors and physical therapists I've talked to.
Hard
Yeah.
knocks.
No, that's pretty much it's.
Mm-hmm. Even if you were prepared for it, the insurance companies change their rules so frequently that.
Yep, and I don't right now. I don't take insurance. I'll take Medicare, and I'll take people who have HSAs, but
Which is health savings account for anyone.
yeah, yep. But I'm working on figuring out how to do this whole insurance game. But the goal was to, like, you learn that in your internship. And the one clinic I was at was really big. They actually have a medical clinic as well. So, or they did have a medical clinic as well. So some of it was I didn't get a chance to get up and see when they did the billing and when they worked with the insurance companies. And then the other one I was at was small. It was just husband and wife, and they gave me some help on it. They certainly had me call a couple times, but they were so set in doing it how they're comfortable with that, and that just didn't get a ton of hands-on experience with it.
You mentioned marketing. So how much marketing have you done to try to draw in new patients to you? Because, like you said, there's already 2 offices in town. So, what are you doing anything to try to separate yourself or sell yourself in this case?
Most of my marketing is actually word of mouth. My goal is just get people better and let it spread that way. I'll do some Facebook campaigns. I was the St. Croix Current, was a paper that ran up and down the St. Croix, and I did a monthly article in that. They're no longer printing, so I haven't been doing that for a little while. But that was always fun. It was a great way to get my name out. Being involved in the schools, being involved in the communities helps quite a bit. Every year we do a float in the Prescott Days Parade, and we try to give away something fun at that. So the first year we gave away a bunch of magnets.
And don't throw candy at kids because you can't do that anymore.
Correct.
Right. We have to hand it.
You just throw it at the ground. They run
No,
for
you
it.
can't do that either. We had a big old safety prep on that when I was in a parade a few
Yep.
years back.
Yeah. Last year we gave bracelets, little like skazes, if you understand that South Park reference. And then this year, right now, can we give this away? What we're planning on doing?
I don't know. I don't want to disappoint if we can't get it.
Okay. Well, we have something fun
It's fine,
planned for
nobody
this year.
Hoping for, we always hope for stuff that entices the little kids. They're the ones at the parade. They're the reason that families are there. So kids bring stuff home that says the business logo, and that helps a little bit.
So if people want to know what you're like going to do, is there somewhere that they can follow you online and figure it out? Like,
No.
Come to the parade. Come to the Prescott Days Parade. We'll
if
show
you're
ya.
not local, fuck you.
We recommend being at the first half of the parade. Last year we gave out 1,000 of those wristbands, and we ran out of those about 3/4 of the way through. We had one lady at the end of the parade who kind of chewed us out for not having something for her at the
She
end.
just really wanted your bracelet.
Yeah.
Did you tell her to write a check for another box?
Also, why is an adult woman berating you for not getting a free thing at a parade?
Dude, they're going to small town parades.
Was
you,
her name
you
Karen?
go to parades to get things. Free things.
I
I
think
guess
she was.
I haven't been to a parade in years because the bar's empty during the parade, so you can get primo seating.
I think she was just kind of upset that everyone else had run out before, and we were kind of towards the end of the parade. So
Last straw.
yeah.
Now, do you see more ROI or return on investment from the social media marketing or from being involved in the community with like the parade and such, or word of mouth marketing?
Both. So I've noticed that when I do more stuff on Facebook, I tend to have more people call in. I don't know if that's specific to those, or if it's just now that I'm thinking about it, energy, they're thinking about it, or if it's I don't know there, but being out in the community, I think definitely helps more because I get a lot of time to talk with different people. Just being this super awesome, enjoyable person that I am seems to help.
Reminds me of my co-host.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so it's kind of split. I think putting it on Facebook more just kind of keeps it in people's minds more, just more of that brand recognition. They can see it more. But when I was doing the St. Croix Current monthly thing, I'd have people come up to me who I had no idea who they were, and they'd start talking to me like they knew me and say, "Oh, I saw your article in the paper and it was great, and I learned this. I didn't know that was something." So it kind of goes both ways. Both ways definitely help.
And do you get a lot of referrals from patients that you've worked with?
Yeah.
Are they?
Yep. That's most of what like I said, most of my marketing is word of mouth. Most of it is people who I've helped who think highly of me for some reason and send people in.
And Court, you said that your goal is to help somebody to the point where they don't need to come back to you quite as much.
Correct. Yep.
Do you see any return patients as coming back for the routine kind of maintenance work?
Yeah, I have a couple people who like to do that. They'll schedule something monthly or every so often. I have one person who I think is doing every 3 months now, and he said when he first came in, he had really bad low back stuff. I think we took it 3 times and he was good to go. But he wanted to set up just every couple months just to prevent it from getting to where it was that first time. But really most people, I had someone else who was doing that too, and she goes like she said I had to do this with the previous chiropractor I went to and I loved it, but now I don't need to. She did it monthly at first, and then she goes, well, I don't need to come in that much anymore, so it's now just whenever she wants to. Most of the time it's when people feel like they need to come in again.
And of course, you know, since you both seem to have your fingers in different cookie jars, you know, what do you do when you're not at the office, you're not working? I mean, do you schedule in, or do you try to find time to just relax and not have to be on the clock somewhere?
The summer has been fantastic for that. So coming off the track season, when we're going from 7:30, if I had a patient before school, 7 in the morning until 10, 11 o'clock at night, there was just constant. There really wasn't much time to just enjoy. Now that we're hit summer, and especially now that summer school is done, because Emily was teaching that, now we have time where every night this summer we've sat and watched a movie, unless I've had a patient who's needed to come in the evening. It's been awesome just finally being able to have some downtime, relax. We'll take a vacation here in a couple
see each other
weeks.
once in a while.
Yeah.
We see each other a lot. We just don't talk as much.
Yeah.
We're
Bye-bye.
always at the same place, but
Yeah.
communication isn't always.
But doing different things.
Yeah.
I know we might have painted a little bit of a negative picture on the grad school portion, but if there's anyone listening that's looking at possibly going to school to become a chiropractor, is there any advice you'd offer them?
Yeah.
Do the 5 years.
Before you do decide to go, make sure to check out. It's not so much on the school side, because I mean, chiropractic school is good. Like, don't let the kind of joking negative talks that we've had influence you in not going. But what I'd recommend is going to check out as many different clinics as you can, because like we said, there's over 150 different named techniques, and within each of those techniques, a lot of people will do it slightly different to adapt to, whether their body type, whether their philosophies, whether their morals for how they like to do things. So check out a whole bunch of different clinics. You might go to one clinic that totally turns you off, but then you go to the next one and you're absolutely amazed. You love it. Just get out there and check out different places. Most doctors are going to be more than happy to have you come in and shadow and learn from them and pass on some information, some help, some knowledge that they may have.
And would you recommend, so someone that's getting or about to leave grad school, would you recommend opening up their own practice and starting from scratch? Or would you say go work for someone and then maybe go that route of opening your own, or let's look at buying the business down the road when that doctor wants to retire?
That's a super tough one. Again, it's tough to find someone who mends perfectly with your philosophies. And if you're going to go work for someone, you want to make sure that you have at least a very similar view, very similar practice style. For some people don't want to own a clinic. They don't want to own a business. Now that I own one, I do not blame them one little bit. The business part is not the fun part. The fun part is spending time with patients, getting to know them, helping them. So it's really all about the individual. I have one of my best friends from chiropractic school who was my study buddy all the way through. He went to work for, I think it's called Northern Wellness Chiropractic in the cities, and he absolutely loves it. Loves the people that he works with, loves what he's doing, and that's great that he found something that works so well for him. And I have other ones who went out and they started theirs right away. They knew what they wanted to do right away. It's all about the individual and what their vision is and what they think, what they feel.
And last but not least, of course, if anyone's listening that wants to get in touch with you, maybe come visit at your practice, what's the best way they can find you, either online or your physical location? What's your address?
Physical location is 720 St. Croix Street, Suite 110 in Prescott, Wisconsin. The old Jake Seed building, the building where Stella dances, the building where Shangri-La Salon is. On Facebook, they can find us at One Life Prescott. Phone number is 715-262-2086. I think that's covers it.
Ben, Casey, do you guys have any more questions? Perfect. Well, thank you again, Carl and Emily, for taking time out of your evening to come down on the show, and thank you for everyone for tuning in. Stay up to date with future guests and episodes by following the show on Facebook, Instagram, Vero, all under Rules of the Arena Podcast. Make sure to follow the show on Twitch, where you can tune into the show and join the conversation live. Just head over to twitch.tv/Rules of the Arena. You can find this episode and all others under blindninjastudios.com/ROA. Also available for download and streaming on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, and CastBox. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, where you can watch live recordings of previous episodes. If you'd like to support the show, there's a couple ways you can help out. Please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also support the show directly by heading to patreon.com/Rules of the Arena Podcast. I just have a couple ways you can help out there. And if you'd like to get a hold of me directly, please shoot me an email to roapodcastinfo@gmail.com. Thanks again, folks, and we will catch you next time.